right, members of the jury, it is for you to determine.
The judge in the murder trial of Kyle Rittenhouse on Tuesday instructed the jury to begin deliberating on the 5 charges against the 18-year-old, who killed 2 men and wounded a third during racial justice protests last year in Kenosha, Wisconsin. 18 jurors heard 2 weeks of testimony, but only 12 will decide the teenager's fate. Rittenhouse himself drew the 6 juror numbers out of a tumbler at random, and the judge dismissed them, leaving 7 women and 5 men on the jury.
All right, folks, you can retire to consider your verdicts.
Here's what they must decide. Count 1, first-degree reckless homicide. This felony stems from the fatal shooting of 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum. Video at the trial showed Rosenbaum, who was unarmed, chasing Rittenhouse into a used car lot.
The defendant provoked everything.
In closing arguments on Monday, the prosecution said Rittenhouse provoked Rosenbaum by pointing his semi-automatic rifle at him. The defense said Rosenbaum made threats and lunged at Rittenhouse, trying to grab the teen's rifle.
He was chasing my client and going to kill him.
The charge requires the jury to find that Rittenhouse caused the death with utter disregard for human life and carries a sentence of up to 60 years in prison. Count 2 and 3, first-degree recklessly endangering safety. Prosecutors say that when Rittenhouse shot Rosenbaum, the teenager recklessly endangered the safety of Richard McGinnis, a videographer who was directly behind Rosenbaum when the teenager fired 4 bullets into him. McGinnis, who was chief video director of the Daily Caller, a conservative website, testified that Rosenbaum tried to grab Rittenhouse's rifle.
He was going for the barrel of the gun.
Correct.
The third count involves an incident after the Rosenbaum shooting when an unidentified man appears to try to kick Rittenhouse, and the teen fires 2 shots at him that miss. This felony carries up to 12.5 years in prison. Count 4, first-degree intentional homicide. This charge involves the killing of Anthony Huber, who swung a skateboard at Rittenhouse. The prosecution said the 26-year-old was trying to stop an active shooter. The defense described Huber's skateboard as a deadly weapon. This is the most serious charge Rittenhouse faces and is similar to first-degree murder in other states. If the jury finds him guilty, he faces life in prison. On Friday, the judge granted the prosecution's request to have the jury also consider second-degree intentional homicide and first-degree reckless homicide in the incident. Both carry up to 60 years in prison. And finally, count 5, attempted first-degree intentional homicide. This involves the wounding of 27-year-old Gage Grosskreutz, who lost part of his arm after Rittenhouse shot him. He admitted in testimony last week that he was pointing a handgun at Rittenhouse when he was shot.
Correct.
Attempted first-degree intentional homicide carries up to 60 years in prison. The judge said the jury could also consider attempted second-degree intentional homicide for this count, as well as first-degree reckless endangering safety. By Tuesday afternoon, the 12-member jury sent a note to the judge asking for extra copies of the first 6 pages of his 36-page jury instructions, indicating that they were still in the early stages of their deliberations.